They tell you love is a drug. It's a charming little lie they sell on greeting cards. A convenient shorthand for a madness we'd rather not inspect too closely. But the comparison is clumsy, imprecise. Love isn't the drug, you see. Love is the ornate, velvet-lined box. The drug, the real, uncut, soul-altering narcotic, is attention. Your attention. It's the most potent and least understood currency in the psychic economy between a man and a woman. You think you are giving her compliments, time, affection, quaint. What you are actually doing is performing a quiet, steady act of alchemy. With every focused gaze, every text message answered in seconds, every time you choose to listen to her mundane story about work as if it were the word of God, you are transmuting the base metal of her existence into perceived gold. You are the sun god, and she, the lonely planet, has learned to orbit your warmth, to organize her seasons around your light. Her friends can tell her she's beautiful, her mother can tell her she's brilliant, but it's all just starlight. Cold, distant, and useless. Your gaze is the sun. It carries a specific creative heat. It doesn't just observe her, it animates her. It is the invisible scaffolding upon which she erects a more confident, more vibrant version of herself. A version she grows to like, a version she cannot sustain on her own. This is the charming part of the tragedy. It's intoxicating for you too, isn't it? To be the alchemist, to see the effect of your presence, to watch the flower of her personality bloom and turn its face toward you and you alone. It is a form of power so profound it feels like virtue. It's the sweet, subtle poison of the ego, the fantasy of the Pygmalion who breathes life into his own beloved statue. You think, I make her happy, a harmless thought. But underneath it, the darker truth coils like a snake. Without me, her happiness withers. Now, withdraw it. Not with a fight. Not with a grand, dramatic exit. That's for amateurs. That gives her something to fight against, a narrative to build, a villain to blame. No, you withdraw it slowly, like a tide pulling away from a shore that has only ever known high water. A text message goes unanswered for an hour, then 3. A joke that once would have earned a rapturous laugh gets only a distracted smile. The questions you used to ask about her day are replaced by a profound, unnerving silence. The alchemist has left the laboratory. The sun god has turned his face away. What happens next is not mere sadness. It is not loneliness. It is a violent metaphysical crisis. The gold you created begins to flicker, to tarnish, to feel fraudulent. She looks in the mirror, and the reflection that your gaze sustained begins to dissolve. She is no longer a statue brought to life. She is cold, dead marble once more, and the chill terrifies her. Her mind, the frantic servant of her ego, launches a desperate investigation. It replays every conversation, dissects every silence, analyzes every gesture, searching for the formula, the magic words, the ritual that will bring the alchemist back to his work. This is the spiral. It isn't a descent into lovesickness. It is the frantic, panicked obsession of a demigod who has been stripped of her divinity. It's the addict's desperate search, not for the high, but for the chemical that makes them feel normal. She doesn't just miss you. She is experiencing the agonizing amputation of a part of her psyche she didn't even know was a prosthesis. There's an old grim story they whisper in the forgotten corners of Pomerania about a creature called a lutin, a house spirit fed not on milk or bread, but on the focused thought of the family. As long as the family worried about it, revered it, even feared it, the lutin was strong, a guardian. But if it was forgotten, if the family's attention turned elsewhere, it would not simply fade away. It would begin to tear the house apart, board by board, nail by nail, not from malice, but from a desperate, existential need to be noticed again. It would rather be hated than ignored. It would rather be feared than forgotten. You stopped feeding the spirit in her house. Now it's rattling the walls. Her obsession is the sound of it trying to get your attention. Her frantic texts, her calls, her sudden appearances. It's the creature screaming, "Look at me. I am real. You made me real, and you are not allowed to unmake me." Recent research, hidden in dry academic journals from late 2024, touches on this, though they give it sterile, lifeless names like attentional validation dependency. They use fMRI scans to show how the neural pathways activated by a romantic partner's consistent, focused attention are the very same ones implicated in addiction and substance abuse. They note that the withdrawal of this attention triggers a response in the amygdala and anterior cingulate cortex, indistinguishable from physical pain. They call it a maladaptive attachment style. How polite. They may as well call a forest fire a rapid oxidation event. It's the language of men who have never had to live in the house the Luton is tearing apart. So I ask you, little God, you architect of beautiful, fragile things, as you sit in your newfound silence, enjoying the quiet hum of your own thoughts for the first time in months. Listen closely. Can you hear the sound of her world beginning to splinter? And does the part of you that played the Alchemist feel the faintest, most grotesque flicker of pride for the purity of the lead you've left behind? When you leave, you take a piece of her she didn't know was yours. The mirror keeps a ghost, a shape you used to fill. She searches for its host, but finds the silence still. Do you imagine she weeps for you? That her tears are for the loss of your arms, your laughter, your shared future? Oh, you beautiful, arrogant fool. She may believe that herself. It's the simpler story, but the truth is a far more grotesque and fascinating thing. She is not mourning a lost love. She is a detective at the scene of a crime, and the victim is herself. When you withdrew your attention, you did more than just leave a vacancy in her bed. You created a negative space, a perfect U-shaped void in the very fabric of her identity. She doesn't just miss your presence, she misses the woman she was allowed to be in your presence. The witty one, whose jokes you always laughed at. The beautiful one who caught your eye across a crowded room. The wise one whose advice you sought. These versions of her, validated and magnified by your alchemical gaze, were the brightest rooms in the house of her ego. And you, dear man, have just walked away with the only key. Now, she wanders the darkened corridors of her own mind, her hand brushing against the walls, feeling for a light switch that is no longer there. This is the obsession. It is not a romantic pining. It is a frantic, intellectual, and spiritual scavenger hunt. Her mind, in a desperate act of self-preservation, becomes a relentless archive. It unspools the tape of your last conversation, playing it backward and forward, listening for a change in tone, a hidden frequency. It scrolls through photographs, not to see your face, but to see her own, to try and remember what it felt like to be that woman, smiling so effortlessly beside you. She is trying to solve the riddle of her own diminishment. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard wrote of the sickness unto death, the deepest state of despair. This despair, he said, wasn't a wish for death, but the torment of a self that cannot reconcile itself with itself. It is the agony of being unable to die, yet unable to live as the person you are. Your withdrawal has plunged her into a quiet, suburban version of this sickness. The self she was is gone. The self she is now feels like an imposter, a pale imitation. Her obsession is her mind's desperate attempt to either resurrect the old self or kill the new one. It's a bizarre form of phantom limb syndrome. She feels the ache of a part of her that was amputated, a part she mistook for her own flesh, but was, in reality, your psychic appendage. The obsession is the compulsive scratching of an itch that is no longer there. It is the ghost of your approval twitching in her nerves. And here in this darkness is a strange and fragile seed of hope. Because in this frantic, obsessive search through the rubble of her personality, she might, by accident, stumble upon something she had long forgotten, a dusty, boarded-up room in her own house that she never showed you, a strength she never needed you to validate, a forgotten hobby, a strange thought, a core of resilience that was hers and hers alone. The obsession, this terrible fever, might just be the thing that burns away the disease of her dependency. She might pick up a paintbrush or book a flight to a city you both hated, or simply learn to enjoy the taste of coffee in a silent apartment. It is a small, quiet rebellion, the first shoots of grass cracking through the concrete of her grief. Most of the time, this doesn't happen. Most of the time, she will simply try to find a new alchemist to turn her lead back into gold. But the possibility, it hangs in the air, doesn't it? The possibility that your absence could be the most profound gift you ever gave her. A terrible, painful, unwanted gift that forces her to finally build a house that needs no outside key. So I'll ask you this in a whisper, so only you can hear. That empty space you left behind in her, the one that echoes with your name. Are you certain it's truly empty? Or are you simply afraid that if you listen closely enough, you will eventually hear the sound of someone else beginning to build in the dark? Someone who looks, for the first time, entirely like herself. Society tells a man he is a predator, so he fears the cage of his own peace. There's an old, probably apocryphal tale from the Carpathian Mountains. It's about a man who could become a wolf. Not a monster, mind you, just a wolf. He spent his youth in the chase, chasing deer for his supper, chasing rival wolves from his territory, chasing the sheer, mad thrill of the moon on a winter's night. The chase was his identity. The chase was his meaning. One day, an old she-wolf, tired of his howling, told him, "The greatest prize is the clearing where you no longer need to run." He scoffed. What idiocy. A wolf who does not run is a dead wolf. Years passed. His muscles ached. His fangs grew dull. He finally chased down the one doe he'd pursued for a whole season. He caught her. He stood over her, victorious, and nothing. The thrill was gone, replaced by a hollow exhaustion. Remembering the old wolf's words, he left his prize and found a quiet, sunlit clearing. He lay down, feeling the warmth seep into his old bones. And for the first time in his life, he was utterly, profoundly terrified. The silence was louder than any hunt. The peace felt like a predator stalking him. Let's talk about you, my friend. Let's talk about the wolf. Why do you chase? We've dissected her obsession. But what about yours? The relentless, socially sanctioned pursuit of a woman's attention. You are conditioned for it from birth. It is the modern man's great, heroic quest. From the playground to the boardroom, you are taught that your value is measured by your ability to pursue and acquire. Chase the grade, chase the promotion, chase the ball. And above all, chase the girl, the one who is just out of reach, the one who poses a challenge, the one whose capture will signify your status to the other wolves. It's a magnificent cosmic joke. Society hands you the script for the predator. She is given the script for the elusive prey, and you both perform your roles with theatrical sincerity. The chase becomes a flirtatious dance, a game of calculated advances and coy retreats. It's dancing with a wolf wearing a wedding dress. You're both aware of the teeth, but you're pretending it's a waltz. Her feigned indifference, her playing hard to get, is the scent that keeps your predator brain engaged. And you, bless your heart, you run. You text, you call, you plan, you provide, you perform. You run until you catch her. And then what? You are in the clearing. You have the prize. And a terrifying, unspoken thought begins to creep in from the edges of your consciousness. Now I have to stay here. The thrill of the hunt gives way to the tedious logistics of maintaining the den. The chase, which gave you purpose and validated your masculine ego, is replaced by relationship, compromise, routine. The very peace you thought you wanted now feels like a cage. A comfortable, well-appointed cage, perhaps with Netflix and shared dinners, but a cage nonetheless. And the wolf inside you begins to pace, restless and miserable. Your withdrawal of attention, your slow retreat into silence is not always a cold, calculated tactic to drive her mad. Sometimes, often, it is the wolf trying to chew its own leg off to escape the trap. It is an act of rebellion not against her, but against the clearing, against the suffocating peace. You withdraw not to reclaim your power over her, but to reclaim the familiar, addictive thrill of being alone and on the hunt again. Or more terrifyingly, to face the silence you've been running from your entire life. Nietzsche talked about the Übermensch as one who overcomes himself. The ultimate act of self-overcoming for the modern man is not to win the chase. It is to overcome the pathetic, primal need to chase in the first place. It is to find the sunlit clearing and not be terrified by its silence. It is to sit with yourself and realize you are enough company. This is the strange liberation. It isn't about freedom from her, it's about freedom from the wolf. So you pull back, you ghost, you become distant, and she, playing her role perfectly, begins to chase you. The polarity reverses, the game resets, and for a fleeting, intoxicating moment, you feel that old thrill again. But it's a hollow echo. You're not a wolf anymore. You're just a man who is afraid of quiet rooms. So I dare you, hunter, the next time you feel the urge to run, either towards a woman or away from one, just stop. Stand perfectly still. Don't check your phone. Don't fill the silence. Just stand there, in the middle of your own metaphorical clearing, and listen to the frantic, terrified beating of your own heart. And then tell me, who exactly have you been running from all this time? When the puppeteer drops the strings, the doll learns to pull back. Imagine this: a dusty, forgotten theater. On the stage lies a single marionette, its limbs tangled, its painted smile chipped. You are the puppeteer. You've grown bored of the play. You've dropped the control bar, the strings have gone slack, and you have walked away, back to the quiet of your own life. You feel a sense of release, of freedom. But you make a mistake. You glance back at the stage. The marionette is no longer lying down. It is sitting up. Its wooden head is slowly, impossibly turning to look at you. The strings are not slack. They are taut, humming with a strange new tension. And they are not rising up to the rafters, but stretching out into the darkness of the theater, into the void. Something else has picked up the strings. And as you watch, paralyzed, the marionette raises one wooden hand and it beckons. When you withdraw your attention, you imagine her mind spiraling into a passive, grief-stricken obsession. You imagine her alone in her room, weeping, rereading your old messages. A sad, pathetic image that allows you to feel both powerful and vaguely guilty. You are wrong. Her obsession is not a state of passive decay. It is the process of a new and terrible energy gathering. Her unanswered questions, her sleepless nights, her constant, focused mental replays, all of that psychic energy doesn't just dissipate, it congeals. It takes on a life of its own. You thought you were the puppeteer, but by creating this obsessive void, you have inadvertently handed the strings to something else, to the ghost of you that lives in her head. And that ghost is not kind. It is not rational. It is a creature of pure, unmet need. It is her obsession given form, and it begins to pull back. This is the reversal. This is the great, haunting paradox. You withdrew to find solitude, but your solitude is the first thing to be violated. You begin to feel her absence as a physical presence. You're at your desk, trying to work, and an inexplicable wave of anxiety washes over you. You check your phone. Nothing. But the feeling was real. You're walking down the street and you smell a perfume. Not her perfume, but one that is vaguely similar. And for a moment it smells of accusation, of rot. You see the back of a woman's head in a cafe, and for a sickening second your heart leaps, convinced it is her, before the stranger turns and breaks the spell. These are not coincidences. This is the marionette, pulling on the strings. Her obsessive thoughts about you create a psychic tether. Carl Jung would have had a field day with this. He would call it the anima, the feminine soul image you projected onto her. You gave it life, you gave it a face, and then you abandoned it. A scorned anima does not simply vanish. It retreats into your own unconscious and turns into a fury. It becomes a vengeful spirit that haunts you from the inside out. It uses the details of the world to remind you of its existence. It is her obsession, weaponized by your own psyche against you. A rather unsettling 2025 paper from a fringe cognitive dynamics institute in Germany called this phenomenon limbic haunting. The study noted that individuals who abruptly severed contact, the ghosters, reported significantly higher rates of intrusive thoughts and anxiety-producing coincidences related to their former partner than the individuals who were ghosted. The researchers hypothesized that the initiator's brain, lacking the closure of a formal ending, creates a cognitive ghost to endlessly replay the scenario, seeking resolution. They called it a feedback loop of unresolved emotional projection. What a bloodless academic way of saying you tried to create a ghost and now it's decided to haunt you. You wanted freedom, but you find yourself a prisoner in the panopticon of her memory of you. You are being watched, not by her eyes, but by the space she now occupies in your own head. Her silence is no longer a vacuum. It is a scream at a frequency only you can hear. Her absence is no longer a relief. It is a constant, low-grade fever. The power dynamic you thought you controlled has inverted. She is not chasing you in the real world. She doesn't have to. Her obsession has become your haunting. She has become the undisputed queen of your inner world, precisely because you banished her from your outer one. So riddle me this, my free man, my liberated puppeteer. You sit alone in your quiet apartment, having successfully won your independence. Why then does your glorious freedom feel so much like a locked room in a haunted house? And why do you have the unnerving suspicion that all the doors are locked from the inside? True sanctuary is not found in another's heart, but built from your own broken bones. I'm going to tell you a secret now, a dangerous one, the kind of truth that, once heard, can't be unheard. It's not a secret for boys, and it's certainly not for the romantics. It's for the man who has been the wolf and the puppeteer and the haunted. It's for the man who is tired. The goal is not to be desired. That is a child's game, a frantic validation seeking that ends in exhaustion. The goal is not even to be loved, not in the way the poets and the pop songs describe it, that desperate, consuming fusion of two halves into a whole. That's a myth for the lonely, a beautiful lie that creates more misery than it soothes. The real goal, the terrifying, liberating, and ruthlessly adult truth is to become unnecessary to yourself, to others, to her. Not unwanted, unnecessary. There is a universe of difference between the two. To become unnecessary is to arrive at a state of such profound, quiet, internal sufficiency that the presence of another is a genuine choice, not a desperate need. It is the difference between a beggar asking for bread and a king inviting a guest to a feast he was already enjoying alone. All the chasing, the withdrawing, the games of attention and obsession, they are all symptoms of the same disease. The belief that your salvation, your validation, your completion, lies somewhere outside of yourself, in her eyes, in her texts, in her surrender, in her absence. Schopenhauer, that cheerful old pessimist, would say this is the fault of the will, a blind, insatiable, cosmic striving that drives us from one desire to the next, a hamster on a wheel of suffering. The only respite, he argued, was in art or in ascetic denial. Solitude, the kind you must now build, is a form of this. It is not a punishment. It is an operating theater. It is the place you go to perform surgery on your own soul. You must patiently, painfully cut away all the parts of you that are still looking for a puppeteer, all the parts that ache for the alchemy of another's gaze, all the parts of the wolf that still listen for the thrill of the chase. This is the true liberation. It is not the triumphant freedom of the man who won the breakup. It is the austere, stark, and breathtakingly beautiful freedom of the man who has stopped playing the game entirely. He withdraws his attention from her, yes, but then he performs the final crucial act. He withdraws his attention from the need for attention itself. He starts building, not a fortress to keep others out, but a cathedral inside his own ribcage. He takes the broken bones of past heartaches, the shame of his own neediness, the memory of his pathetic wolf games, and he uses them as raw material. He learns that his focus, the same alchemical gaze he once lavished upon her, can be turned inward, that he can, in fact, transmute his own lead into gold. He finds that his own validation is the only kind that doesn't tarnish, that his own company, once feared, has its own quiet music. This is the fragile hope that deepens the darkness. The path to this cathedral is through a valley of ghosts. The journey is impossibly lonely. You will be tempted every single day to find a new person to chase, a new distraction to silence the deafening hum of your own being. To build this sanctuary requires you to face every inadequacy, every fear, every pathetic impulse you have. It requires you to be your own God, your own worshiper, and your own sacrifice. The strange liberation that comes when a man stops chasing what destroys him is this. He discovers that the only thing he was ever truly chasing was permission to stop, permission to be still, permission to be enough. When you arrive there, you will find that love is still possible, but it will be a different kind of love. It won't be the desperate grasp of two drowning people. It will be the calm, quiet handshake of two self-sufficient sovereigns, choosing to share their kingdoms for a time. You have withdrawn your attention. The ensuing chaos has settled. Her obsession has likely faded or found a new target. The ghosts in your own mind have grown quiet, starved of your fear. You are alone now in this candlelit room, with nothing left but the truth. The question is no longer about her. It is no longer, does she want me, or how do I get her back, or how do I escape her haunting? The final and only question is this: what will you build with all this magnificent, terrible freedom?